Elegoo has finally released the long-awaited upgrade kit that turns your original Centauri Carbon into a multicolor 3D printer for just $55. Hello everyone, I'm Dan, and welcome to my kitchen. Today I am joined by the Centauri Carbon 1.5. Today I'm going to quickly run through the upgrade kit that turns the Centauri Carbon into a multicolor 3D printer. I've been testing this bad boy with the upgraded canvas system, and I have to say it has been absolutely fantastic, and it really is a super inexpensive upgrade to do to this printer. I also want to point out that this video is not sponsored by Elegoo. They simply sent me the upgrade kit and asked me to make a video on it. All thoughts and opinions throughout this entire video are my own. To get started, installation does require a bit of work and about 30 minutes to an hour of your time, so I'm going to quickly run through the entire process. I started by disassembling the hot end assembly on the printer. This meant removing the cooling fan assembly, a handful of screws, the front and rear covers, the cables, and the PCBA from the bottom. Once that was out of the way, I was able to remove the communication board and replace it with the new one that's included in the kit. After bolting the new board in place, I reconnected all the cables and routed a new cable towards the front of the extruder. I do want to point out I did have to clip two tiny retaining nubs so that the cable would fit properly. From there, I reinstalled the PCBA and rear cover. Then I removed the hot end along with the old heat break fan assembly, gearbox, and filament cutter assembly. Next, I installed the new gearbox and filament cutter assembly and connected the sensor board cable to the new cable I routed earlier. After installing the new heat break fan assembly, I connected everything back to the PCBA, reinstalled the hot end, and attached the new filament hub bracket to the gearbox. I then threw all of the covers back on the hot end, bolted everything down, mounted the new filament hub to the extruder, and reconnected the communication cable. And just like that, the extruder was finished. Moving on to the rest of the printer, I removed the old nozzle wiper and poop chute and replaced them with the new assembly using 4 screws. Then I carefully flipped the printer onto its side and removed the entire bottom panel. From there, I installed the new canvas cable extension and then plugged the canvas cable into it. After buttoning the entire bottom back up, I moved on to installing the canvas filament system itself. I removed the foam pad from the side of the printer and replaced it with the new one so that I could mount the canvas bracket to the frame. The canvas module then bolts directly onto this bracket. After that, I connected the 4 PTFE tubes from the canvas system to the filament hub. On the side, I removed the filament runout sensor and side bolts so I could install the new spool holder rails. Once those were secured, the spool holders simply snapped into place. I plugged in a USB stick with the new firmware to update the printer. This only took a few minutes, and just like that, it was ready to print. So to do a quick benchmark test, of course I had to print a benchy, just to make sure everything was working properly after the upgrade. Everything looked solid, clean, and there was no obvious printing issues or failures. I did this just to verify that all of the parts I had installed worked just like they should. The first real multicolor test that I tried were these little foxes. The printer handled them with absolutely no issues, and honestly, I'm super impressed with how good they came out. The detail looks fantastic. All 4 foxes printed consistently, and there were no signs of color bleeding or swapping issues. Now, yes, this did create a decent amount of waste, but the print was mainly to showcase the multicolor functionality. And overall, the canvas system handled this very well. Next, I wanted to test the reliability and repeatability of small parts. So I printed an entire bed full of these flexible mice using multicolor filament swapping. After a few hours, the results were honestly pretty great. I didn't have a single failure. All the mice flexed properly, the layer quality looked really clean, and the color swapping worked flawlessly. All of these look perfectly identical to each other. There is some layer lines at the very top, however, this is because I was using silk PLA, which does show layer lines a little bit more. Now I have a massive pile of these mice, and I don't know what to do with them. And for my final test, I decided to print the Summer Palace. This print took roughly 10 hours and came out looking phenomenal. The Centauri Carbon handled it almost perfectly. You can see a few tiny areas where the filament sagged slightly, but honestly, it's barely noticeable. And this was kind of my fault because I didn't add any support whatsoever underneath of these ceiling sections. Overall, this print looks incredible, and I absolutely love how this turned out. This was a fantastic final test, and I'm blown away by the quality of it. Overall, the canvas kit is a solid upgrade for the Centauri Carbon. I'm extremely impressed by how well it works, how quick it was able to upgrade, and the cost. For about $55, you can turn a roughly $300 3D printer into a multicolor 3D printer with about an hour of work. Now, this upgrade won't be for everyone. However, compared to the old days of building a 3D printer out of a box of parts and zip ties, this was nothing. And I can personally say I have been using the Centauri Carbon for well over a year now, and I have actually really enjoyed this 3D printer. This upgrade is just the cherry on top. It just makes the 3D printer even more useful. So if you're thinking about upgrading your printer, I can highly recommend it. However, if you don't own the Centauri Carbon or you don't want to go down the upgrade route, the Centauri Carbon 2 was just released, and I can honestly say it is a very solid option. And with all of that being said, I want to give a huge thanks to Elegoo for sending me this upgrade kit. I really do appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. All of the links for everything will be in the description below. I'll see you in the next one.